Hey guys, it's Rogway here, and today we are looking at some typographical effects that we could do with Photoshop. And I'm using the latest version of Photoshop, and we're going to look at how we can combine pictures and text together in an interesting way. We're also going to look at some effects that we can add really quick and easy to give our text more of a interesting sort of custom look using Photoshop. So I'm going to try to go through this pretty quickly, but the first thing we're going to look at is this file I have called Start. We got the word Ronaldo here, and if you're a fan of soccer, you know who Ronaldo is, hopefully. And we're going to look at how we can combine Ronaldo's name with a picture of him as well. Okay, so what we're going to do is we've got that open. We're also going to open up a picture here of Ronaldo with the background taken out. All right, that's kind of important for this particular example. And hopefully you know how to do that already. And I'm going to take my move tool and I'm simply going to drag him and drop him over top of his last name. And I'm going to move him down so that he is over top of the name. Now again, you might be thinking, what the heck? It doesn't look very good, but I'm going to show you how we're going to combine both his picture and the text to make it look like they are one image. All right, so you'll see here, I'm just going to kind of place it something like that. All right. So first thing you're going to see is after you've got this set up, you've got your picture little thumbnail of Ronaldo up at the top. We got the text layer, which is Ronaldo right here. And then we got a gradient layer, which is giving us that sort of purple to blue to purple sort of gradient that's going on in the background. Now what we're going to do for this to work properly is we're going to be using a layer mask, and we are going to control which parts of the picture show and which parts get hidden. And what we want to do is we want to make it look like he's sort of intertwined with his name. All right, and I'm going to show you a little trick. If you hold Command on the Mac keyboard and you click on the T next to the Ronaldo layer, you're going to see that everything on that layer becomes a selection. You can do this with anything. All right, so you can do this with anything in Photoshop. If you hold Command and click that layer, whatever's on that layer will become a selection. So you'll now see that we have a selection of the text. And just to show you, if I do Command and I click on the Ronaldo layer, now that becomes a selection. Okay? So press Command D just to deselect temporarily here and go to the Ronaldo layer. What we're going to do is we are going to add a layer mask, and this is where you find the layer mask. Right here at the bottom of your layer palette, you'll see this little rectangular donut looking icon. We're going to click that, and you're going to see that your layer is going to split into two. So the left side is the picture and the right side is the mask. And the easiest way for me to explain this is when you paint on a mask, by default, it's going to be white, which means that everything is showing right now. And as we paint on a mask, if we paint on this side, anything that is black will disappear. So I like to think of it as black, you're turning off the lights, and white, you're bringing them back. And any shade of gray in between is going to be different shades of transparency. So what we're going to do is we're going to hold Command and we're going to click the T again on Ronaldo. And now we're going to actually be able to see where those letters intersect with the picture. I'm going to go back to this mask here, and I'm going to switch to my brush tool. And I'm just going to make it a little bigger. Okay. Now you'll notice by default when you're on a mask, your colors are black and white. And that's what we want. All right. Currently it's set to white, which means if I paint on here, it's not going to change anything because it's already white. So you won't see anything change. I'm painting right now. Nothing is changing. However, if I switch to black, so if I press X to switch the colors, now when I paint, I'm actually going to take parts away, because those parts have now become masked and we can't see them because the mask is covering them up. So I'm going to get a little creative here. I'm going to erase some parts of it, like so. And you notice that because we have that selection that we made with the Command key, we can't screw up here. We really can't screw up because it kind of forces us to only be able to paint inside of the letters themselves, all right? And you'll see how that looks. It looks really great. All right, we're gonna leave his arm in front here, I think. And now we've got sort of a combination of his picture with his text. And if I press Command D to deselect, you'll see now that the picture is intertwined with the word. And one thing I like to stress to you guys is typography is very important. It's just as important as the pictures you choose. And so we want to make it look like every piece of text was put there custom and used in a custom way. And this is no exception. I'm just trying to fix that little edge here that looks weird. So to do that, I'm going to select this again. And now I'm going to paint with white, which will bring parts back. And I'm just going to clean this up with using black and white till I get sort of the desired effect here. And you see that that looks a lot better. Command D, that looks great. Now, next thing we're going to do here is we're going to do some effects to the text itself. And you'll notice here on the Ronaldo layer, I've got a little bit of effects already added. It's a drop shadow. Now, I'm not a big fan of the drop shadows, so the nice thing is as you add effects, you can click the little eyeball to turn them off and turn them on to see what looks good and what doesn't. I'm going to turn that off. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to double click the effects. Now, if you don't have effects already added, you can add any effect from the FX panel down here, and it'll give you access to the effects window that will open. All right, so in this case, what I'm going to do is I'm going to do a gradient overlay. Okay. And like I said, you're going to see all the effects you can add along the left-hand side. We're going to come back to this later. But for now, with the gradient overlay, we're going to just pick a nice gradient that goes well with this picture. So you'll see right now it's just going from white to gray. Okay, I'm going to go to this little pull down here. I'm going to look at some of the folders here, and I'm going to try different color combinations, things that might look good. All right, that one's not bad, actually. That one's kind of cool. And again, I'm not really going crazy here trying to make it perfect, but I'm just getting a gradient on the text. So just to show you how you can do it. Now, you can change the angle of it just by turning this. So now the angle is kind of going across it like that. You can also adjust the opacity, so you can bring that down so that it's not so intense. Okay? There's a lot you can do with this, and you see that it really gives it some character right away so that it's not just boring, plain white text, unless that's what you're going for. Okay? So I'm okay with that. Again, there's a lot of options we can do here, like we can change the blending mode so that it blends with the colors underneath. We can change the angle, the scale of the gradient. We can also change the colors in the gradient by clicking on here. And we can choose which colors are being used. We can even add more colors if we want. We can drag them out if we don't want. And up here is the opacity of those colors. So you can change that or you can add more depending on the type of gradient you want. We're going to hit OK. And we're going to say OK. And now we got a much more custom looking text with the picture combined, and it looks really, really good. Let's go on to another example. So I'm going to just close this. I'm going to make sure to save it. Just make sure you save it. I'm going to hit don't save because I've already got this. We're going to look at the next thing, which is the skate.psd file. So let's open that up next. Now in this one, we've got something a little different happening, okay? We've got the skateboarder who is cut out from the background. We've got a layer for the text that says skate. And on the background, we have actually a copy of the same layer. The only difference is on this one, he is the only thing, he was cut out. And on the lower one, we have the entire picture. The reason we did that is so that this little piece with his hands and his board will overlap the text. All right, so this is kind of a start for a design. Now, in this one, we're going to look at something a little different. On the top layer here, I got a blank layer. And we're going to use this to create kind of an interesting effect, one thing that'll kind of make this thing look a little cooler. First of all, to make this work, we're going to use our brush tool. And we're going to go with a fairly small brush. Something about that size is good. And that's 11. Again, your picture is going to probably need a different size. And the color I'm going to set to white. This will become important very soon. Now, again, we want to have this top layer, which currently has nothing on it. We want to have that selected. And we're going to go to our Paths tab here. And you're going to see that I created two paths. One to cut the guy out, and the second one is kind of a zigzag looking line that goes over the entire skateboarder. All right? With that one selected, and again, if you want to create your own, you can use the pen tool here to make your own paths if you want to make a custom one. All right, but we're going to go over this one that I have selected, and I'm going to go to these four little lines in the corner. I'm going to click them, and I'm going to choose Stroke Path. And what Stroke Path is going to do is it's going to add a line that follows the path, either using the settings from your pencil tool, or in this case, we want to use the brush tool, which we just set up. And we want to simulate pressure, which means it's going to get thicker or thinner depending on how the line sort of follows, how the brush follows the line. I'm going to say OK. And you notice what you get is if I go to my layers now, actually before that, we want to just, I don't know why these pop-ups are coming off. I'm going to click off of the path. And I'm going to go to my layer on top to create an effect over top of the line that we just created. Okay, so you'll see here, we've got this line that we stroked off of the path, and it's now on this layer that was previously blank. All right, and so now with that layer selected, we're going to add sort of a neon glow looking effect. It'll look really cool on this particular picture. We're going to go to FX down here. And we're going to go to Outer Glow. And Outer Glow is, again, kind of a fun one to play around with. We can set the color of the glow right here. And I recommend going with something kind of bright and, you know, something that's going to show up nicely, a really bright color. And using opacity, we can control how well it shows. And then down here under elements, we can control the spread, so how much of a glow there is, and the size of the glow, so how much it blurs. And so what we're going to do is we're going to just create this sort of, I don't know, like neon tube looking thing. We can also change the contour so the light can look like it's wavy, or, you know, we can get all sorts of neat effects with this. We're just going to keep it on default. And there's a range and jitter, so again, you can tweak these to see what they do, but I don't really change these much. Okay, jitter makes it look a little more randomized. That's not making much of a difference, but anyways, once we're happy with that, we're going to hit OK. And now, again, this entire layer, anything we add to it is going to glow. And so now we got this very cool sort of glowing effect over top of our skateboarder. Now what we're going to do is we're going to combine the technique we just looked at with our layer masks to make it look like this light is wrapping around him. So we're going to go to layer 2. We're going to click the layer mask. We're going to go to our brush. And we're going to make sure we're using black because we want to hide some parts of it. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to go over every second line. Okay, so this is the second line because here's the first one, now second one. And then I'm going to go over this one, which is the next line, second line. And what I'm going to get is an effect that this line is wrapping around our skateboarder in this case. Okay, so I'm going to erase every second line just like this until I'm happy with the result and I'm happy with how it looks. All right, here we got his finger. I'm going to make it look like it's just coming from behind his finger, sort of. All right, and then down here, we're going to do the same thing. We're just going to make it look like that line is wrapping around him. So it's very cool, very easy to add. And as you can see, it has a pretty neat effect. Now, the cool thing about effects is you can always go in here and double-click, add more effects, or as you'll be able to tell here, I could just change the color with one click. I can try different color combinations to see how they look instead. As you can see, that looks pretty cool. Again, this is a great way to add some quick effects to stuff you have. Now, you will notice here, maybe I want the color to go in front of the letters instead of it going behind. So you can reorder things as you see fit, depending on the design you're doing. Okay, so I'm going to save that. Actually, I'm not going to save it, but you guys are going to save it. You're going to save it, and we're going to close it. I don't need to save it. I already got it. And we're going to move on to the last example here. Now, in the last example, what we're going to do is we're going to install a custom font. We're going to install a font called Brie in this case. You guys can pick any font you want. And what we're going to look at here is a custom file for typography that has maybe a custom effect added to it. So I'm going to hit new file. I'm going to set my file size. Really doesn't matter, but I'm going to go with about a 8 by 3. Oops, I wasn't even typing. 8 by 3. Set my background to white, maybe. Actually, yeah, let's leave it. You know what? Let's do black. It'll look cooler. Set it to black, 8 by 3, and hit create. Okay, we're gonna have a blank page here, obviously. Then we're gonna take our text tool, and I'm actually going to load up Brie, which is the font that I'm using, but again, you can use any font you want. We're also gonna make sure the color of the font is white. And I'm okay with it being a basic font, but I'm going to type something here. Let's see, I'm going to say text. Or how about just effects? It's what I'm showing here. So, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to scale this up so that it's as large as possible. And something like that. Okay, so it's going to take up the entire page. Now, really, the only thing I wanted to show here, this is going to be a quick one, is how effects can really change the way your typography looks in your designs. So let's say you're designing something like a movie poster, or you want to, I don't know, you need some sort of custom text, or anything for that matter, but in this case, text is what we're focusing on. Layer styles here are going to really be your friend. And again, we can look at some of them. We'll probably look at a few of them here anyways, but the one we'll look at first is bevel and emboss. And bevel and emboss is a great one. If you're looking for just a little bit more of a dramatic effect on your text, I wish I could make this smaller to show you easier, but I'm on my laptop here, so it's pretty small. With bevel and emboss, you got all sorts of different effects you can add. So the first thing is depth. And what you're going to see is this little edge. It's going to make your text look 3D. You can change your size, and you can see how that beveled edge comes into effect there, how it starts to get added to your text. Okay, you can soften it so it's not such a harsh edge. Okay, you can tweak that to what you like. All right. You can control the actual, sorry, let me just get a little bit better. That's not bad. Can control the actual angle of the bevel. All right, so where's the light coming from? You know, can kind of play around with that. The contour of the bevel itself. So you'll see you get all sorts of neat effects using different types of bevels. Okay, I'm just going with a straight one for now. The colors of the highlights and the colors of the shadows, very cool stuff. All right, and you can see that we took some basic text and now it's got a lot more sort of character to it. Stroke, pretty obvious. If we want to put an outline on it, like let's say I'll put a red outline, I don't know, it's going to look bad, but we can put an effect where we have a stroke on it. We can decide whether it's on the inside or the outside, or if it's centered. You know, is it overlapping? You know, you can control that and the size of the effect itself. All right, so maybe you're going for more of a cartoony sort of look. Again, you can adjust the stroke size to whatever looks good to you. Inner shadow is going to control how much of a shadow is inside of the text. Now, this may not work because the bevel is actually sort of overriding it, so that we might not see that in this case. Same with the inner glow. That would create sort of a glow on the inside. I'll skip satin, okay? But satin basically gives it this effect where it basically softens the text, all right? And again, you can control the angle of that light in that softening sort of effect. In this case, it doesn't look too bad, actually. So I might kind of keep it, all right? And you kind of play with it. It adds like a bit of noise to it, okay? You can see what it's doing. Creating a bit of a noise effect. I'll turn it off. You can just turn it off by unclicking that. Color overlay, this one's pretty obvious. If you want it to have a certain color, all right, like let's say I want it to actually be blue. That'll overlay blue over top of it. Okay, turn that one off. Gradient overlay is one we already looked at. If you want to have different colored gradients overlaid on your text, so that it doesn't look like it's just all one color. You got different colors sort of going through it. Get some really neat effects with that if you're using it sparingly. Pattern overlay is one that I really like. Pattern overlay is a cool one. This is one where you can get some really, really neat effects, and you can upload your own pictures as well. Okay, if I want something that looks like it's sort of stone, you've got some nice presets here, but you can set the blending mode so that it just uses, basically just uses the texture itself rather than the entire, picture. So we can control the amount. All right, and as you can see, it kind of has a nice sort of, hard to tell, but if I zoom in, you'll see that it has sort of a scratchy look. I'll zoom in after. Outer glow we already looked at. That'll give it a glow. That looks absolutely horrible. So we don't want that much of a glow. We don't want any glow at all, but I'm just showing you all these things. And then a drop shadow. Obviously, we won't be able to see it very well here, but a drop shadow, we'll put it to white. Then we might be able to see it. Got a white shadow. I'll set it to normal so we can actually see it. It should be able to show up. Yeah. So it's like a glow, but normally if it's black, it's a shadow. So there's all sorts of effects we can turn on and turn off and play around with to get a very different effect, very different looking text from just our default basic text that we have. And again, by playing around with these, you can get some very unique looking effects on your text to give them a much more personality, give them a much better look. Again, if you're doing something like a advertisement or a poster, movie poster, whatever, you're going to see this is used a lot. And again, these are just a couple things you can use in your designs to make your typography a little more interesting. One of the things I feel like any amateur any amateur graphic designer doesn't do is pay enough attention to the fonts and the character of the fonts. So anyways, try this out, and if you have any questions or whatever, if you're not sure, put it down in the comments or let me know.